look like you're always having so much fun. You're cutting the deals over lunch. Like, that doesn't really happen for us. I can't see my clients wanting to get, on camera. I don't know. Bravo comes knocking, talk to my agent. Well, what happens to those Class B, C buildings in Garment Center where people are trading up that are now 20, 30, 50% vacant? Right. If those had to sell today, are those worth less than they were, before COVID? Absolutely.
Really?
And they're probably down 20 to 30%. We're not seeing it in the numbers yet because they haven't traded. No one likes losing money on a property, but sometimes it's better, to just rip the Band-Aid off and just get out of it than lose the whole thing. And I've seen that happen many times before. Out there that will actually buy the land under your property, and then you can keep the building itself as a leasehold.
Which will kill your cap, but it'll save your building.
That's right. If you're a contrarian investor, New York on the whole, everyone right now, the safe move is I'm going to go buy multifamily in the Southeast, right? I want to be in a growth market. I want to be in Nashville. I want to be in Austin. High street retail right now has been so beat up. First it was e-commerce. Yeah. Now it's COVID. We're handling a retail space in the heart of Soho right now on Broadway. At the peak of the market, retail rents on Broadway were $1,000 a foot. You can get that investment right now for an 8 or 9% return.
But as an owner operator of those types of properties, maybe pride gets in the way. Is that their downfall?
We all want to be optimistic.
Sure.
We're, as brokers, number one job description is you have to be an optimist. The taxes here on rental properties are about 1/3 of the income. So unless if you have a way to abate that, right, it's very difficult to make the numbers work. And now they're going to revise it. So this current program sunsets June of next year. So guess what? Developers are already saying, hey, I'm pencils down. And there's even discussion, is the construction going to have to be prevailing wage? Is it going to have to be union? If you make the cost of the project that much greater and you're requiring developers to offer housing at, much lower levels, the numbers aren't going to work. As a result, developers won't build, there won't be new units, there won't be options for people to move to. We can kind of get away from, these sound bites. We need more deeply affordable housing. Yes, okay, but let's take a rational approach on how this is going to work, because you need that public-private partnership. Some person through GoDaddy.
Some schmuck had it.
And then someone told me afterwards that it's actually like there's some, I don't know if there was some lawsuit or like where you shouldn't be able to buy. Because when the internet first rolled out, like someone went in and bought McDonald's. I don't even know, because you go through GoDaddy. They're the intermediary. I don't even know who I bought it through. But like when I started, they're like, we want $6,000 for this. I'm like, I'm not paying $6,000. And so like we were negotiating, but like, at a certain point, because
you can buy it. Yeah.
I was looking at, do I do James P. Nelson? Do I do James Nelson NYC? But
you could have.
I don't know. The advice I got was if you're going to do it for, search and everything, like you want the name. So whatever. I did.
It's subjective over objective, but yeah, Compass.com had to be purchased too, or you gave the holder equity instead of money. I think he does well now. He's
oh wow!
It was
Smart.
worth the equity probably.
Smart,
for him, but you have to. Sometimes you have to do what you got to do. All right, let's start. Test. All right. So I'm gonna give me like 1 minute. I'm gonna do an introduction to you. Mm-hmm. So welcome to another episode of the Real Talk Podcast. Thank you always for listening to our loyal subscribers, loyal listeners, loyal streamers. Today I'm here with James Nelson, just one of the best guys in New York City, the top guy. He's currently serving he's sold over $6 billion. I just did a rough internet math here, but over $6 billion in sales. James currently serves as a principal and head of Avison Young's Tri-State Investment Sales Group, where he leads a group of 36 professionals in the sale of multifamily, office, development, and retail properties throughout the country. He's represented Breaking Ground, Brookfield, Carlyle Group, JP Morgan Chase, Related, Salvation Army, 60 Guilders, just to name a few. Throughout his 20-year career, James has been involved in the sale of approximately 500 properties and loan sales for an aggregate value of over $5 billion. Prior to joining Avison Young, James served as vice chairman of Cushman Wakefield, and prior to that, he was the youngest partner and top producer for Massey Knakal for 6 of their last 8 years. For those of you looking for opportunities in New York or outside of New York, Avison Young has 120 offices around the world. You can visit his profile on Instagram at James Nelson NYC. That's again at James Nelson NYC. And look for the link in his bio. Or you can also find him on his new website, jamesnelson.com. James, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Talk. It's great to see you, and
Thank you.
I appreciate the warm intro, but my biggest claim to fame is just being your friend. So it's really great to watch all the incredible things you're doing, and just it's fun to be back here doing this live. It's been a long time since we've had the chance to meet up in person.
Yeah,
so looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a while. The last time I saw you was when Compass was still relatively small compared to where we were and where we are today. I think it was the revenue luncheon after you visited our office. The revenue luncheon was, who was it? There was two brokers that were talking some commercial. It was like commercial luncheon, and this was the time when Rob Refkin, our CEO, still had the time to network and shake hands at a revenue.
That's right.
Yeah. So times.
It's been really exciting to see you all grow.
Times definitely fly. Well, I want to reintroduce you to our listeners. A lot of people know you, but since a lot of our listeners are on the residential side, I want to kind of go over a couple warm-up questions with you.
Great.
Let's do it. All right. So please answer in one word, just one word only. The COVID-era retail and office leasing market.
One word. Oh, jeez. Now you got me. Well, I would have to split retail and office. Maybe I give a word or two for it.
Give me a word or two.
So I would say for retail, fighting, as in fighting its way back.
Okay.
For office, I would say flight, as in flight to quality.
Flight. That's interesting. So you're saying, buildings like 425 Park or some of these Class A buildings.
That's right.
SL Green or Newmark, those buildings.
One Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. There
Yes.
you go. Yes, that's right next to Grand Central. Those are filled up, leased up.
They are. Yeah, they're doing incredibly well, and again, tenants are taking advantage of this market to trade up in space. And again, there's not a ton of leasing activity going on out there right now, but yeah, the activity that is happening are at some of these top buildings here in the
word
city.
is flight. Flight
To quality.
Flight to quality.
Not as in
Three
flight
words.
to Florida.
Flight to
Not leaving. Right.
3 words. All right, one word. This COVID era commercial sales market.
Rebounding.
Great. That's good to know. It's good to hear. Social media.
Essential.
You are definitely one of the most consistent marketers on Instagram.
Thank you.
And your IGTV.
I've got a great team.
Again, plugging at James Nelson NYC. Residential brokers.
I'm going to say essential again.
We are not essential workers,
Yes,
but it is
you
essential
should be.
part of New York City.
No, you're bringing the city back, right?
Yeah. Okay. One more. De Blasio.
I might need a couple more words on this as well.
Sure,
can't
great.
leave soon enough. Oh wait, that's
Okay.
4.
Soon enough.
That wasn't controversial, was it?
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't
Yes.
think so. I think most of the people in the industry and also most New Yorkers agree.
Yes.
I mean, the change is always difficult. Do you think this transition will be difficult?
You mean the next administration?
Correct.
Are we talking
The current-
the
the next administration.
presumptive
That's right.
mayor? Yes, Eric Adams.
Mr. Adams.
No, I think that New Yorkers are going to welcome him with open arms, as is the real estate community. I think everyone is really. We should all be united in bringing New York back to be the number one city in the world that it's always been.
Good. Okay, good. I like the optimistic outlook. A couple warm-up questions. Where were you born and where are you from?
So Burlington, Vermont, but I was only there for a year.
Is that
and then I
right?
was in Wisconsin for 10 years.
Okay.
Maryland, and then New York.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, where did you go to college?
Colgate.
Colgate. Okay. And were you a college athlete?
Yes. Division I swimmer.
All right. So, just the whole athletic competitive mentality, I suppose, translates into this competitive commercial world that you're in.
Well, I think I have, Colgate to thank, but also my sports background, because Paul Massey, who was the founder of Massey Knackle, the first company I worked for, he specifically, the company looked for athletes to hire. Because
And not just club athletes.
Well, no, look, anyone who is dedicated, who, maybe not, someone who plays pickleball today or yeah. But no, the college athletes know about discipline, but also about tenacity. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, that's a big part of brokerage. I mean, there's a lot of rejection we get, and that focus and that hard work piece to it is really key. And so, to this day, I've got a lot of team members right now who are college athletes as well.
We'll get to more on that a little later.
Good.
Go to NYC restaurant.
So I've got to admit, I'm not too adventurous because we're up on 5th and 44th Street. So I'm like, as long as it's within 2 or 3 blocks. So, whatever's close
Zuma,
to there.
5th and 44th.
Zuma's that's close. Even Madison Avenue. That takes me an extra block or 2. I'll travel. If it's lunch with you pick the place. I'll come downtown.
All right. Your favorite New York City neighborhood?
I like the South Street Seaport.
Oh,
I don't know.
Interesting.
I
did not expect that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we're talking about just new neighborhoods, places to hang out, we actually bought a place there years back, and I just, I love that it's near the water and, the cobblestone streets, and it's kind of a throwback. Yeah,
Ann Street, Stone Street, some beautiful blocks over there, down there especially. And then obviously there's the new restaurant that opened up in there. During COVID, there was that greenfield right north of the Seaport, where they had the restaurant and the drinking and the live music. So that definitely is an interesting part of Manhattan for sure. Favorite city outside of New York City and why?
So my older sons play water polo, and so we travel out to the West Coast a lot. And I love California. I just love going out there.
So water polo in California, is that
it's a big sport out in California. So if you want competition, you have to go out there. So I was in San Diego, LA, over the last month or two, and I love the balance where you've got the city, but you have the beach right there. I think it's really cool. The weather's awesome year round.
Where do you go, Venice?
Just like wherever, Newport Beach, Hermosa, Laguna, wherever, wherever the tournaments take us. But it's a lot of fun to go out there.
Yeah, and you have water polo. That's great.
Yes,
I would assume that probably must be one of the hardest sports to play in all sports. As far as role models in the industry, do you have any? Who and why?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm so grateful to Paul Massey and Bob Knackel. Sure. I started my career at Massey Knackel 23 years ago, and they gave me a chance. And to their credit, I think they really revolutionized the business and the approach, and gave me the opportunity to start out. And I, even though we've all kind of Paul started up his own firm and Bob's at JLL, but we all stay in close touch. And, I think a lot of my skills today, leadership qualities, I mean, these are all things that I'm just, trying to mirror from those early days.
That's great. We're going to get to more on that a little later as well. Mm-hmm. I have some questions about that. And last and final warm-up question here. Does commercial real estate need reality television?
I don't know if it'd be as exciting. I don't know. You guys look like you're always having so much fun. It's like all these, there's a lot of drama and and you're cutting the deals over lunch. That doesn't really happen for us. We're like very transactional. We're just, we're hammering it out on the phone. I mean, maybe. I mean, we've got some pretty interesting stories. I mean, the thing is, so much of what we do is confidential, and it can be. I can't see my clients wanting to get, on camera. I don't know. It's very tough. But, I mean, there are certainly some characters and some pretty wild stories that we encounter. So, I don't know. Look, I'd be game. I mean, I don't know. If Bravo comes knocking, talk to my agent.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you can be.
I'll be your agent.
All right, good.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say no if a TV show approached you and said, "Hey,
look,
I've noticed you're doing a lot of big deals." And
I appreciate your mentioning JamesNelson.com because this is something it's kind of a soft launch. You're going to be hearing a lot more about it in the fall, but. I'm very passionate not only about brokerage, but also teaching people how to invest. So if you go to JamesNelson.com, the
investors link.
It says, yes, it's gain the insider's edge to real estate investing. And I think even though real estate is the biggest investment class in the US, right? It's bigger than stocks, right? There's all these shows about how to invest in the stock market. There's so little on how to invest in real estate.
Right.
There's a lot of fix it and flip it and how to get rich
Property
quick
brothers
and poor dad, rich dad, poor dad.
Yeah.
But actually, how to invest in real estate, there's really no sources. And so, I get asked, James, how do I learn about the business? Like, what's the book? Where do I go? Right? Now, you could go to Columbia for a year. You take classes at NYU. That's a great thing to do. But if you're curious about the business and you want to learn, there's very few resources. So, that is why I launched jamesnelson.com, is to have that resource hub. That's why I do the podcast, is really to educate. So I think there's a need. I don't know if it'd be glamorous enough, exciting enough, but I think there's a lot of people out there, and I'm sure a lot of your clients who say, look, I own my apartment. I'm interested about investing in real estate, taking it to the next level. How do I learn to do that? So again, I would certainly be open to that.
Right. You're totally right. What's out there right now are a lot of the get rich quick. This is how you maybe get a loan and then flip it on Airbnb and then sell it. It's not enough of the day-to-day nitty-gritty operational type steps that are needed to actually be involved in real estate. So that's great. Again, you guys visit the website and check out the log yourself in on the investor profile, right? Is that what you?
Yeah. They can go on the investor profile. That'll actually get you hooked into Avis and Young, so we can actually send you listing opportunities. But if you sign up on the mailing list, you're going to get data. A video series which is step by step how to invest in commercial real estate. And I feel like, and hopefully, I love for you, your team to check it out. And after you watch, it should. It's not going to clearly teach you everything you need to know, but it should give you enough of a start to say, okay, I know where to start and I know what to do. All
right, we'll put the link in the show notes for our listeners as well. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's go into your history a little bit. When I first found out about you, and I read The Real Deal, so you're always on there, but when I first saw you and actually put a name to a face was at one of the multi-family it was the Massey Naco multifamily summits at the McGraw-Hill building, probably around 8 or 9 or almost maybe 10 years ago. And Bob spoke. Maybe the first year I went, Bob spoke. And my gosh, he was probably the most articulate, smart, savvy, smooth, just well-spoken moderator and speaker that any of the other candidates that were there that day. I think Bob was probably at the top as far as engagement from the audience. He was very good. And then I seen you talk, and you were talking in front of, I don't know, maybe 500 people there. And you were just as eloquent, just as precise, just as articulate, and the crowd obviously had a great engagement with you. So, a lot of respect from you from those times. Fast forward to today. You're no longer at Massey. You were a partner there. You guys were purchased by Cushman Wakefield. Then, only after 2 or 3 years, right, you went off on your own to become partner at Avis & Young. So what happened there? I mean, what was the transition like? Why did you decide to, first of all, I guess, join Cushman? Maybe you didn't have a choice. I'm not sure. Maybe talk about that. And then why did you leave Cushman after 2 or 3 years? So what did you see there?
So, yes, I was at Massey Naco for 17 years. Bob and Paul were, like I said, they remain, mentors to me in the business, and I was very grateful. They made me a partner in the business. When I started, we had 20 people there. By the time we sold it, we had 250 people across 4 offices. We were selling 3 to 4 times the amount of properties as the next brokerage firm. So we really focused in on this niche. And we really took the company as far as we could. I mean, and just watching, Compass's growth, what it takes to go, national, global. 100%. I mean, it takes a lot of resources, and we were ready. We said, look, if this works in New York, it's got to work in other markets. So we actually were out in the market looking for a 49% partner. We were looking for someone who could help fuel our growth and take us national. And Cushman came along and said, look, we want the whole thing, right? And at the time, Cushman, one of the oldest, most respected brands in commercial real estate, they had basically a hole when it came to investment sales. They were very experienced, adept at office leasing, project management, finance, but they really needed the sales arm. So they acquired us, and it was great. I mean, it was literally the most seamless situation. And yes, I was fully on board for the sale.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Massey Knackle, it was the partners. Everyone stayed, right? And that was part of the arrangement.
Right.
And it was seamless. It was literally next day, here's your business card, keep doing what you're doing. We even stayed at the same office.
Wow.
Right? So
Okay.
it was great. And I think, I always look at these things also, what's best for the client, right?
Sure.
And so by now, clients were starting to look outside New York and to be global, to be full service, very helpful. We had some great years at Cushman, very successful years. I have nothing but great things to say about it. So what happened was, after Cushman acquired us, Cushman was then acquired by private equity, and they just started growing and growing and growing. And when we sold the company, Cushman had 24,000 people. By the time they sold it, they had 48,000 people. They had acquired other brokerage teams and firms. All of a sudden, it got very crowded in New York. And look, I get it. They're looking to cover every square inch of the city. But this opportunity came along to join Avis & Young, who also was established in New York, but really an up-and-comer. Avis & Young is a Canadian company, has only been in the U.S. now for about 13, 14 years. And they did not have a sales presence. They had a couple principals there who were doing very complicated transactions. They're still with our team today. They said, James, we really need someone to build out our investment sales platform. So to me, Avis & Young is really the best of both worlds, in that I'm one of 750 owners of the company. So, it's like Massey Knackle in that I have a seat at the table. I was with our CEO yesterday.
Okay.
If I have an idea, it's great. James, go figure it out. And then if it works, let's roll it out to the rest of our offices. So I like having that personal involvement. But for our clients, it's great because we're also global and we're full service, and we're not even, we're a fraction the size as Cushman, but we've got coverage in the right markets. If one of our investors wants to go, buy down in Miami, they want to go buy in LA, they're going to find someone like myself who probably has 20, 25 years experience at one of the big shops out there. So it's been incredible. We've had a lot of fun. We were really on a tear until, unfortunately, last year when I don't have to tell you. But we have really been working hard to come out of this stronger.
Okay, good. So you guys are international. What other countries are you guys in?
So shortly after I joined, we bought GVA in Europe, and that expanded our company by 28 offices. But we're now pretty much on every continent. So yes, we have been growing. We've got 120 offices around the world. And, again, every time we open these offices, we bring on more principals. And it's a different conversation when you reach out to a fellow owner of the company. Now it's not just a transactional, like, hey, let's do a deal together. It's, hey, how can I make you look good, for the benefit of your client? Because if we do well, we all do well for the company. So it's been really exciting. And, once we open up the borders again, I can't, we do our annual group meetings and get everyone together.
That should be great.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Once business travel comes back
Yes.
in the near future. We brushed up on, Bob, who went to JLL, and Paul, who founded his own firm.
Yes, firm. B6.
Did you not have, let's just say, sort of an attraction to going with one of those guys, or?
Well, I was the first to leave, so so I was kind of I guess a trailblazer in that regard. But I had already kind of set my path, and I think we all ended up. And by the way, there was partners who stayed at Cushman, and they're still doing incredibly well, and it's all worked out. I think everyone found their home and the right setup for them, and like I said, we remain very close.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, big props to those guys for still paving the way, and Paul starting something new after something brand new after 30 years in the business.
He loves it. That's what he does. He loves building.
Yeah. No, that's great. Let's switch topics. We talked about COVID. I know. Just as an industry in New York, we were hit probably the worst out of all of our cities. I'm not sure about commercial, but our friends in residential in the Hamptons or Aspen, Colorado, or we talked about Newport Beach or Dallas, they're having the career years. I mean, they're having literally the best years of their entire career as far as movement, transactions, dollar volume, deal volume. I mean, everything is up. But New York City is kind of its tail on its own. Give me what your mindset was last year, March and April.
Well, I mean, when this hit, I was really deer in headlights because, usually I like to have the answer for things, and it was a really scary time, and we didn't know how long this was going to go on for and what this was going to look like, and obviously not being physically in an office to try to figure it all out. I mean, it was really challenging, and
sure.
In our business, when there's uncertainty, what happens is people just wait on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. Sellers don't want to sell because they say, well, hey, I don't want to sell into this. I'd rather try to wait, right? Kick the can down the road.
Of course.
And buyers, unless if it's a steal, they don't want to jump in because they don't want to catch the falling knife, right? They don't want to, ride it on the way down. So
first one in the woods and find an arrow on their back. Yeah.
Right. So there was very few transactions last year. It felt a lot like 2009 in the depths of the financial crisis, where the transactions that we were doing were for estates, partnership disputes, and distress. I mean, those who had to transact.
It had to, right. Unlike the financial crisis, though, it's not like buildings were going to default in March and April, right? I mean, it was so sudden.
It took time. And even today, I mean, a lot of the lenders worked with their borrowers because it wasn't like the borrowers were doing anything wrong. And if the lenders would take back the properties, what are they going to do differently, right?
I mean, it'd be worse.
So a lot of them have given forbearance, and that has kind of prolonged it. But in the meantime, and I don't have to tell you. I mean, you're seeing it right now. The rebound in residential has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so that recovery, again, will help bring these owners out of it. Retail and office could eventually be another story, but for the most part, it was just kind of pushing things off until this year, and finally, we're seeing that transactions are on their way back up.
So you were just hanging out at home March and April, just kind of like the rest of us, not really doing deals, right? We weren't even allowed to go into our buildings where our listings were. So
yeah, I mean, I always say and I'm sure it's the same way as you are. We're always busy. Always busy. Yeah. The question is, are we busy talking to our clients, counseling them, or are we busy actually getting contracts signed? Right. So
two different
last
things.
year I was on the phone constantly. Yeah. Everyone's just starved for information. What's going on? Are there any trades happening? Yeah. Are there opportunities? What's going on? And it was actually, we're kind of getting back to this now and feeling a little more normal, where the conversations are a lot quicker and everyone's busy. But last year everyone's kind of sitting at home, and you'd have those 20-30 minute conversations, which used to be just 5 minutes. And hey, where are you camped out? What's going on with the family? What's going on with school? I mean, and if there's any positives to this horrible thing that happened, you got to know people on a deeper level. And so it was really just staying in close contact, trying to be, again, a resource, helpful in any way we could. Mm-hmm. Was certainly at it full time. And we only really shut down the office, for a month or two here and there. I mean, it was optional, clearly.
Sure.
But I was going in a couple days a week, and just, I wanted to keep trying to power through this.
As brokers, real estate and commercial, if we're not in the offices,
that's right.
We're probably doing this service.
You got to lead by example.
You got to lead by example. We're in the business. Where do you think if you were to sell an office building today in today's market, I mean, are the prices just down all across the board?
Surprisingly, office prices are up. Okay, but
no way.
Yes, I know.
Hard to believe.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, that's why you always have to look at the numbers. So there was only 5 office buildings that sold in all of Manhattan in the second quarter. So what happens is, when there's very few transactions that happen, they're the sales that are happening at a peak level. So, for example, 410 10th Avenue sold. Okay, that was a big trade. It was almost $1 billion, right? Okay. 4.6 cap. Yeah. That sounds pretty good, right? Yeah. Well, you also had Amazon, who just signed a new 20-year lease. Okay, so was that really an office deal, or was that really a deal about Amazon, right? And there was a couple other sales that went to end users. there was a sale that happened up the street here at up the avenue at 260 Fifth Avenue to a foreign buyer. But when you only have a handful of sales, right, it skews the numbers, right?
It does.
And I think if a lot of this office needed to be forced through the system right now, some of these Class B, Class C buildings, because remember earlier when you were doing the speed round, I was telling you that there's been a flight to quality. Well, what happens to those Class B, C buildings in Garment Center where people are trading up that are now 20, 30, 50% vacant?
Right.
If those had to sell today, are those worth less than they were, before COVID?
Pre-COVID?
Absolutely.
Really?
And they're probably down 20 to 30%. We're not seeing it in the numbers yet because they haven't traded. But my belief is, unfortunately, with office, if you look at all the sales, if they all got pushed through, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
What do you think is going to get those sellers to trade at those levels? Is it going to be desperation because of financing, or is it going to be family estate issues? Will it be? I mean, what do you think it'll be? Will it be just vacancy?
I think it'll be. Yeah, no. If someone owns their building free and clear, right? Unless they're having challenges covering the real estate taxes, which is a concern for some of these buildings. For the most part, it's going to be because of the debt, right? Yeah, so if the lenders have been patient, have given them forbearance, and they've been allowed to wait, they're going to hold off. Yeah. Okay. But what's going to happen is when their loan comes due, most of these loans are 5 years. Okay. So let's say you've got a loan coming up later this year, and I go back to my lender, and now my building is 30, 40% vacant. I say, great, I'd like to refinance. And the lender says, fine, but you need to pay down your mortgage. You say, what? Or you need to personally guarantee this mortgage, which a lot of, no one likes losing money on a property, but sometimes it's better, to just rip the Band-Aid off and just get out of it than lose the whole thing. And I've seen that happen many times before.
I mean, for a landlord not to miserably fail like that, I mean, where do they have to be mentally? Do they just have to be, what do you call it? They have to be just
unemotional.
Yeah. You have to be dead inside.
Look, you just have to be analytical. You have to look
rational.
You have to look at the numbers, and again, something can be better than nothing.
As an owner operator of those types of properties, maybe pride gets in the way. Is that their downfall? Is that?
I think it's just. Look, we all want to be optimistic.
Sure.
We're, as brokers, number one job description is you have to be an optimist, right? We all want to see this market recover. It's just, it could take time. And so I don't, I don't even think it's ego. I think it's just hope that, hey, if I wait a little longer, maybe things are going to recover and I'll be able to get out of this. And many of them will.
Good.
Many of them will, if they can work with their lender and say, hey, can you give me a little more time? But again, our job is to put options on the table, right? Yeah. So, and maybe it is a sale, but maybe it's also helping them refinance, right? Or maybe it's a partial sale. We can help them recapitalize. We can either get really fancy, and there's now funds out there that will actually buy the land under your property, and then you can keep the building itself as a leasehold.
Yeah,
right.
You can pay land lease.
That's right.
Rent. Yeah. Which will kill your cap, but it'll save your building.
That's right.
Right. So what are you going to do? Where is the best deals? Like where right now? I mean, people always come to you, right?
Right.
Hey, James, where's the best deals? Like where can I put my money?
So I mean, first of all, if you're a contrarian investor, I mean, New York on the whole, everyone right now, the safe move is I'm going to go buy multifamily in the Southeast, right? I want to be in a growth market. I want to be in Nashville. I want to be in Austin. And it's hot. Miami. I get it, but it's herd mentality, right? Very so you much. Talk about what an apartment building sells for in Nashville or Austin, it's a 3.5 cap. Here we've got 5.5, 6% returns in New York,
but
right?
The price, but there's a digit difference in the price. Prices.
Well, I mean, here we've got regulation, right? Yes, so you got to know the rules and all that. But New York on the whole right now is less competitive, right? Because a lot of these investors are now looking elsewhere. But if you want to go, further down to this contrarian mindset, I think high street retail right now has been so beat up, right? That, I mean, first it was e-commerce. Yeah. Now it's COVID. I mean,
that's both.
I mean, look, we're handling a retail space in the heart of Soho right now on Broadway, right? And at the peak of the market, retail rents on Broadway were $1,000 a foot. Okay, so look,
That's
this
$1
lease
million
we've got a
plus
great
a year,
bank
right.
tenant that's in there, and they've got 4 years left in their lease, and yeah, they're paying over market based on today, right?
Sure.
But you can get that investment right now for an 8 or 9% return. You say, James, that's crazy. An 8 or 9% return in Soho? Well, look, I mean, if you try to factor in what rents are today, you'd say, all right, well, I don't really have upside, I have downside. But my point is, the question isn't where things rent today. The question is, where is it going to be 2-3 years from now? And High Street, whether you're talking about Soho, Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, is heavily dependent on tourism. This year, we'll only have 36 million tourists come to New York because of all the international travel bans.
And traditionally, we get
double that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to see that, okay, right now, you don't see tons of shoppers down in Soho or Fifth Avenue, but like once things open back up again, it's gonna return. Is it gonna be where it was 2-3 years ago? No, right? But is it gonna be 20 cents on the dollar? No. So I like retail right now.
Are there a lot of retail? I mean, are you talking about? And forgive me because we're in residential. We're not really sure about how these work, how this whole system works. But when you say retail, are you talking about just buying the retail portion? So it's already a
retail
condominium?
condo. So you've sold the apartments upstairs, there's a retail condo. Typically, the developer will hold on to the retail and then sell it. Right. Okay. The other way it can happen is a lot of these co-ops, as you know, actually benefit from the income they get on the ground floor. So your maintenance might be lower because they are getting income from the ground floor.
Like
the problem, though, is some of them are now facing vacant retail, and they're saying, uh-oh, this is going to be an issue because now my maintenance is going to double or triple. And, so there's going to be some pressure there.
So are there a lot of... To candidly ask, there are a lot of opportunities to buy retail condo or retail co-op in downtown?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Well, who knew?
Look, and especially vacant ones right now, and that's, again, there's been so much pessimism when it comes to retail that the pricing has really, really moved in the buyer's favor.
Skewed down big time. Okay, understood. We're gonna. I know you're a busy man. We're gonna switch topics here. The government. We touched on this a little bit earlier. New York has, just rules. There's laws. 2 years ago in the summer, New York imposed a new rental law legislation that I think in your business it would affect a lot of your multifamily sales. Stabilized tenant rent control.
HSTPA, the Housing Stability Tenant Protection Act. You got to give them credit. I mean, it was a great name. Mm-hmm. And look, the intentions were good. Okay. We definitely have an affordability crisis here in New York. There is no doubt that we need more affordable housing. There is no one that denies that point.
100%.
The question is, how are you going to provide it? Okay, right. And what they did sounds really good if you're a politician and you want to get reelected, to just say, hey, I'm going to just freeze all the rents, across all the million rent stabilized apartments. You just made 1 million voters really happy. Okay, if you won the housing lottery. If you were lucky enough to have that stabilized apartment, or your grandmother passed on, a beautiful apartment on Central Park South with five bedrooms, right?
Yeah.
So, but the crazy thing, Todd, is there's no means testing. You could be working for one of these big investment banks, making millions of dollars a year, paying $800 a month for your apartment. 100%. It makes no sense, right? And if you talk to any of the housing specialists, economists, Yale, they've done studies to say the issue is that we do not have enough housing, right? So if you build more housing, that alleviates the housing pressure. There's more options for the fair market, and then you can certainly, and you need subsidy too, right? And we have this great program, and I don't know how technical you want me to get on this interview, because we could do a separate show on it.
Yeah,
but
sure.
The new version of the 421A, which is called Affordable New York, was a great program that there was hundreds of new apartment buildings built under this program. Okay, and it allowed for anywhere from 25 to 30% of the units to be affordable, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, developers are building all over the city. And why? Because they get a 35-year tax abatement. If you do not get a tax abatement, the real estate taxes here in the city will eat you alive, right? The taxes here on rental properties are about a third of the income. So unless if you have a way to abate that, right, it's very difficult to make the numbers work and build it.
And 35 years is a good term.
Yeah.
That's not within the previous
That's
term.
right. Yeah. That's right. So, and it was a good thing. It created tons of apartments, and now they're going to revise it. So this current program sunsets June of next year.
Gotcha.
So guess what? Developers are already saying, hey, I'm pencils down. I'm not building anything unless if I know for certain I can get in the ground, because I don't know what this new program is going to accomplish. Right. And what I am hearing so far is that the affordability requirements are going to be increased greatly, where you're going to have to deliver deeply affordable housing, right? And there's even discussion, is the construction going to have to be prevailing wage? Is it going to have to be union? Oof, so if you make the cost of the project that much greater, and you're requiring developers to offer housing at much lower levels, the numbers aren't going to work. No one's going to build. No. So as a result, developers won't build. There won't be new units. There won't be options for people to move to. And again, it's if we can kind of get away from these sound bites on we need more deeply affordable housing. Yes, okay, but let's take a rational approach on how this is going to work, because you need that public-private partnership. If it doesn't make sense for developers to do that, they're not going to build it. Right. So again, I could go on and on, but it is a major consideration for getting things done here.
Say the numbers worked hypothetically, and New Yorkers were always, it's such a contentious issue, but where would we even build? Where would people live? What kind of developments are you envisioning? If had the numbers worked for construction?
Yeah. So this is another hot topic. Yeah. Very contested, because a lot of the housing right advocacy groups would say, look, we need affordable housing across the board throughout the city in every single neighborhood. I mean, the reality...
Where's the land for that?
Well, it's not just where's the land, but I mean, let's take Greenwich Village, for example. Almost 90% of it is in a historic district. You couldn't build affordable housing there if you wanted to.
No way, yeah.
Right? So we need
West,
density, right? And you need near transportation hubs. Sure. Okay, so we're talking, what's going on in Jamaica, Queens, right? Major subway hub and artery. Mm-hmm. Land is cheap there.
Yep.
I think we should build as much affordable housing as we can.
But is there land there? I guess.
Sure there is.
Yeah, there is. Okay.
Sure there is.
All right. Yeah.
But again, no one is going to build it unless if they know what is the program.
Yeah. Okay. Let's switch gears real quick. Finally, this is more on the operational side of things. I run a team. Almost every broker here, they run a team. It's kind of what Robert Refkin, when he founded Compass, he envisioned that the future of real estate is basically teams. And you have a team yourself with a dozen people, about, or 20?
Almost 30.
30. Okay, so you have a team of 30. What goes behind the operation of your team, as far as A, hiring, B, spreading out responsibility, mm-hmm. and C, making sure that everybody on the team is maximized and they're successful?
Great question, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, because as much as I love doing deals, building a team, because this is, look, I'm sure there's many people listening right now who do everything on their own, and there's only so many hours in the day. Yeah. So, and if you're like me, you're not good at every aspect of the job. And there's a lot of aspects of the job. There is the underwriting. So, are you good with numbers? Mm-hmm. Are you good at the client management? Are you good with negotiating transactions? There's so many different pieces to it. And so, what I learned very early on is that you want to bring in people who are unified, who want to become part of something where they realize they can leverage this platform too. The key though is it's all about the people, and if you're a Jim Collins fan of Good to Great, getting the right people on the right seats of the bus. Gino Wickman also wrote a book that's awesome called Traction, dealing with people who are GW, gets it, wants it, can go out and do it. It's so important to have the right people. And so I've got a great leadership team, which allows me to go out and do fun stuff like this.
Yep.
So I've got a director of operations who oversees our analyst team, our marketing team, have a sales manager who is working with the salespeople. But above all, I think the key to success for a team is just having an open, transparent environment, right? So we meet every morning as a team in person. And for a while, obviously, while we were remote, we were doing the Zoom thing, which was nowhere near as effective. Because we want everyone access to every piece of information that's out there.
Yeah.
And pretty much my entire career, I'm finally in an office, but I was in a cube, and I actually for a while I said I want to be back on the floor.
Yeah.
Right. Because we learn so much by listening. I mean, that's how I learned in the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want people to overhear those conversations. You want people to hear what's going on. You want to hear what's going on. We also have a database where we all share the same information. So I know if someone on the team spoke to one of our clients, I know what they said and what they presented to them. So it's having that open architecture. And then the last piece of it is I think the compensation has to also be aligned. You can't have culture if the compensation does not match, right? Because if you have little mini brokerage teams that are each, looking to go out and get their own commissions, it's human nature. You're going to focus on the deals where you're being compensated. Yeah. So this has taken us a couple iterations, and I've been, we've really worked hard to kind of tweak this over the years, but we have a commission pool that everyone shares in on every transaction. So one person wins, everybody wins, right? Now, to a certain extent, you still have to reward the person who brings in the business. That's always for us the most valuable piece, the origination piece, right? That's the toughest part. Go out and getting that exclusive listing, 100%. Right? Then that's the biggest bucket of compensation. Then we have an execution pool where the people who actually worked on the transaction, and then the pool points is everybody else. And why would you pay someone who was not on that transaction? In my eyes, it's because hey, maybe that person was doing the right thing and they met that investor and they put them on Salesforce. And even though they weren't the one that ultimately called that person and brought them to the deal, that person bought the property because they made that connection. And you could never retrace all your steps. So it's worked out really well. But I think that's a big piece to what we do. And I can't think of any other commercial brokerage firms that are set up the way we are. And I really think it's the key to our success is that we have this unified sales team.
Right, and so you're basically trying to ensure that your brokers aren't fighting each other for business or for a bigger piece of the pie. Everybody, it's very transparent. That's right. Everybody knows what they're getting.
We want to see everyone succeed, right? It's like, hey, what can I do to help you out, right?
Yeah, that's super fascinating, interesting. I don't know if other residential teams do it like that. I don't think I've ever heard it like that. So it really makes sense that there's transparency and there's nobody feels left out at the end of the day as far as commissions are concerned. And your commissions, unlike residential commissions, there's an extra digit or two behind those numbers. So the stakes are quite large. They're very, very large. So I'm sure people are very interested in what their cut is even before
there's it's complete transparency. So everyone on our team knows what everyone else makes. That might seem a little uncomfortable, but it's there, and that way, there's never any conversations of, oh, hey, what's your split on this or that? Everyone just knows, hey, this is the deal.
This is
right?
Fascinating.
Because I also don't want to have friction or I just want people to focus on
after the fact. Why did you get this? It's not fair. What about the next one? Yeah, that's right. I get it. Yeah, you don't want those emotions of fueling up your team overall. Last question: what qualities do you look for in a candidate when you're hiring somebody on salary? Like staff, like you're maybe like an operations person versus like a broker, a commercial broker?
Great question. I think so. Passion to start with is huge for because both? I really think you have to like what you're doing. If you do not enjoy your work, you're not going to be successful, right? You're not going to be happy about it. So look, I mean, different people are wired differently. So we enjoy the thrill of the hunt and calling and trying to get that business. That terrifies a lot of people. Some people would say, hey, just let me keep my headphones on and I want to just sit here and crank out numbers and I'm in my happy place. So that's cool. It's like find your role, right? And what makes you happy. And I think that's key. But yeah, having that tenacity, those leadership, and that kind of goes back to your question earlier about, why did Paul like athletes? That tenacity, not giving up, right? The hard work, no substitute for that. So
if I was, say, a 21-year-old young buck with no experience, but I was a Colgate lacrosse player.
Right. I'd love to bring you onto the team, but we and someone gave,
must have experience.
Someone gave me a shot, clearly out of school without experience. But the way we're set up, because we are a smaller team, relatively speaking, like we don't have like a training program per se.
Right.
Generally, we do look for a couple years experience, but we actually do. We have onboarded some residential brokers before who joined our team. Okay. As long as they understand the business. And by the way, we just brought someone on who was a rental broker for like 10 years.
A residential rental broker.
Residential rental broker. And he has brought value day one, because we're out there showing these apartment buildings, and he knows, okay, this is how you need to reposition this apartment, and this is the unit layout, and this is the rent, and these are the concessions. Now he needs to learn the investment side of the business, but so it's someone who has a couple years experience in the business, so at least is familiar with the real estate. That's typically what we look for. But no, there's a lot of great places, out there where, hey, if you're willing to, jump in right out of school, that's the great thing about this business, right? So, the sky really is the limit.
Sky's the limit. James Nelson, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the Real Talk podcast. To the listeners, again, follow James. Find him on Instagram at James Nelson NYC. And again, his website, jamesnelson.com. James, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
This was a lot of fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is great.
All right. Take care.